Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Laura Macon-Isherwood and these are the headlines of the hour. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg says the number of Russian troops on the border with Ukraine is going up and asserts the deployment is a dangerous moment for European security. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow is ready to discuss Russian security proposals with the UK during talks with UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. Russia and Belarus launch joint military drills that have heightened tensions with the West as NATO leaders pursue an intensive diplomatic push to prevent a feared invasion of Ukraine. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau lambasts trucker-led protests that have shut down central Ottawa in anger at COVID-19 health rules. India's most populous state of Uttar Pradesh is voting in the first of a series of local elections that could be a key test of the appeal of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's developmental agenda. Police in London are widening their investigation into controversial lockdown parties at the UK Prime Minister's residence. The criminal probe has been dubbed Operation Hillman, with officers now expected to contact more than 50 people who are believed to have attended the parties. An internal inquiry has found evidence of 16 parties, and the police are examining 12 of those, which appeared to meet the threshold for criminal investigation. The events in question have left Boris Johnson facing the gravest crisis of his premiership. The internal inquiry revealed that Downing Street staff had attended parties both at the Prime Minister's residence and office, with Boris Johnson joining a few of those events himself. The revelations around Johnson have raised questions about his judgment. Widespread anger has led some Conservative lawmakers to join opposition politicians in calling for the Prime Minister to quit. Our correspondent Benji Hire joins us live from London now. Benji, the Metropolitan Police has rowed back on a previous decision not to investigate a claimed virtual quiz held in Downing Street after images were leaked to a British newspaper. Give us more details on that.
These were pictured in the Daily Mirror in the past day or so, and what they show is Boris Johnson and his officials gathering for that virtual Christmas quiz in December 2020. Party hats on, tinsel also surrounding them. There is definitely sort of a party atmosphere, so the picture implies. Of course, at the time, restrictions set out by the government meant that people from different households were not able to mix indoors unless it was for essential work purposes. The fact that there's bottles of Prosecco open, packets of crisps strewn across the table, opposition parties say that demonstrates this was not necessarily a work event. What's interesting here is that, as you mentioned, the cops decided not to investigate this at the time as a potential COVID breach. With the picture now out, they're deciding to review that, revisit it, and add it to their existing ongoing investigation. And from that, we could see potential implications for the Prime Minister or indeed his officials with him. There's one more thing to add which could spice things up certainly, and that's that the former advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings, who now finds himself out of 10 Downing Street, tweeted when this story dropped in the Daily Mirror, and his tweet reads that there are way better pics out in circulation, meaning there could yet be more revealed in the coming days.
So Benji, if Boris Johnson is found to have breached COVID rules and he's issued a fine, will he have to resign?
Laura, it's funny you asked that, because that was the exact question that was put to Boris Johnson in the past couple of hours. I have his full response here. He said that process must be completed. He's looking forward to that process being completed, and that will be the time to say more on that. He's talking in reference to the police investigation that is ongoing. That's on top of the existing report that's been put out by Sue Gray, the senior civil servant, into those series of revelations of parties taking place in the Prime Minister's residence of Downing Street during coronavirus lockdowns. What's important to take away from that quote is that it's neither confirmation that he'll resign nor a flat-out denial. Essentially, we'll have to wait and see. Amid all of this, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty from Conservative MPs about what would happen if Prime Minister Boris Johnson was given a fine. It's certainly not as serious as a prison sentence, for example, but the Tories and the MPs that work and represent that party pride themselves on being the party of law and order. Can they really have a leader of the party, of the country, who has received a criminal penalty? That's not to mention the fact that if he is found guilty by the police of breaking those COVID regulations, he would have also meant that it would also mean that he has misled Parliament when he stood up and told his fellow MPs that there were no gatherings that took place during those dates at Christmas, that there was no breaking of the COVID rules. And the Labour Party, the opposition in the UK, they argue that that in itself would be a resigning matter.
Well, those questions surrounding what happened in Downing Street and how Boris Johnson was involved continue to whirl. Benji Hire in London, thank you very much. The United Kingdom is witnessing a steady dip in the COVID-19 infection curve, and the British Prime Minister appears to be pushing ahead with plans to phase out remaining COVID rules. England is ready to roll back the legal requirement of mandatory self-isolation for COVID-positive patients, potentially later next month. The proposed move would be one of the most dramatic easings of coronavirus rules taken by any developed country so far, doubling down on a strategy of trying to live with COVID.
Provided the current encouraging trends in the data continue, it is my expectation that we will be able to end the last domestic restrictions, including the legal requirement to self-isolate if you test positive, a full month early, Mr. Speaker.
The British government has justified the decision by basing it on falling case numbers and hospitalisation rates, but has pointed out that the law to self-isolate could be reimposed promptly if a dangerous new variant was to emerge. But the complete removal of restrictions is likely to prove controversial, and opposition politicians are asking whether the government's scientific advisers support the planned change. England had lifted a number of COVID-19 restrictions in late January this year. Mask requirements in closed places and vaccine passports have been shelved. And from Friday, fully vaccinated tourists will no longer be required to undergo mandatory testing when they arrive in England. The number of COVID-19 infections has also declined sharply since the new year. And although the total case tally still remains high, new infection figures are continuing to fall every week. The UK is one of the worst hit nations in Europe, with over 10 million cases and close to 159,000 deaths so far. Meanwhile, the United States, the New York state has decided to roll back a mask mandate in place for the most indoor public settings. According to the governor of New York, infection rates have declined to a level that's now considered safe enough to repeal the order. But mask wearing in schools, healthcare facilities, certain types of shelters and on public transport will remain in place. Private businesses can also set their own rules for staff and patrons.
New Yorkers, this is what we've been waiting for. Tremendous progress after 2 long years. And we're not done, but this is trending in a very, very good direction, and that is why we are now approaching a new phase in this pandemic.
Hochul said that the decision to keep the mask mandate going for schools will be revised in the first week of March, depending on the situation. Schools are set to reopen in the US after a winter break.
So after this break, Parents will have test kits for their children. We want them to test the day after they come back, and again 3 days later, and let the school know if your child tests positive, keep them home.
But fears over the pandemic continue to persist. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention still recommends universal mask wearing in schools. The US CDC Director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, said that with cases still high nationwide, now is not the moment to drop mask mandates in schools and other public places.
At this time, we continue to recommend masking in areas of high and substantial transmission. That's much of the country right now in public indoor settings. And so we're, of course, taking a close look at this in real time, and we're evaluating rates of transmission as well as rates of severe outcomes as we look at updating and reviewing our guidance.
Around 5,000 COVID-19 patients were hospitalised statewide as of Monday, with locals saying it's too early to lift the mandate.
I don't really think it's the right time to lift the mandate. I understand that she's keeping it inside of the schools, but I think even though that is an indoor area, we should keep it for other indoor areas as well. We're keeping the children safe. They're cross-referencing with the adults. We should keep everyone safe for now.
Well, moving on, Ukraine is bracing itself for a potential Russian incursion, but they won't be fighting alone. Thousands of soldiers from at least 27 countries have volunteered to defend Ukraine. WION's executive editor, Palki Sharma Upadhyay, is in Kiev, bringing us ground reports, minute-to-minute updates and the voices from the most tense capital in the world. She visited a training facility of the Georgian Legion in Kiev, where foreign soldiers are training for a potential war.
Ukraine is getting war ready. As world leaders shuttle between capitals to strike peace, soldiers are gearing up for war. In sheer numbers, the Ukrainians are no match for the Russians. They have NATO support with a clear caveat: this is not our war. So who will fight with Ukraine if Russia does invade? Soldiers from 27 countries, including India. They are training for war. We are at the garrison headquarters of the Georgia National Legion. This is a paramilitary force that is supporting the Ukrainian military. These are foreign fighters. They used to be a frontline unit in the eastern Donbas region. And this is a very significant part of Ukraine's defense because the Ukrainian government allows foreigners to officially fight in its military. In 2015, they passed a legislation that allowed foreigners to do so. And since 2014, 17,000 foreigners from all parts of the world, foreign citizens, have come and joined this force and trained to defend Ukraine against Russian aggression. And this is the first step for them to officially join the Ukrainian military. The Georgian National Legion is a defense force of volunteers. It used to be a frontline unit in the early years of the war in Donbas. But with the threat of a Russian invasion looming, the force has been reactivated.
Group 3, assault. Set in.
The Legion has enlisted soldiers from 27 countries, including the United States, Australia, Germany, the UK, Mexico, France, Austria, Greece, Japan, Croatia, Serbia, and Georgia. Some of these fighters are knee-deep in snow, and these are people who've traveled from all over the world to fight with the Ukrainian forces. The trainers here say that they get hundreds of applications every day of people who can come and join here. Earlier, the clearance took up to 4 months, but the government has since streamlined the process as it readies its defenses to take on an aggressive Russia. Its commander, Mamuka Mamulashvili, is a veteran of 4 conflicts against Russia. Mamulashvili receives hundreds of new requests from potential recruits every day. He says he's also getting applications from people in India who want to join the war in Ukraine.
Generally, we had applications from different countries, many different countries, so there were applications from India too. It's quite interesting for me myself to understand why people are motivated to help Ukraine and to help them defend their freedom. In my opinion, it is the place where today democracy should be defended by everybody. Those people who are applying to Georgian Legion, they generally have a motivation to help Ukrainians and to help them to protect their families and their independence against Russian aggression that might escalate very soon. And it is unpleasant for everybody, and all the world today must stand with Ukraine and give their hand of friendship.
In Ukraine, foreign fighters can legally serve in the armed forces. They are given 3-year contracts. The barrier for entry is low. Those who complete their contracts are granted citizenship. Groups like the Georgian National Legion help pave the way for recruits to get these contracts. Meet Emmanuel. He is from Albania. He has made Ukraine his home and the fight against Russia his mission in life. He says he's left his family behind because he believes in the war for Ukraine's sovereignty.
What happened 26 years ago in Albania, in Yugoslavia, if you heard of the Yugoslavian war, we were murdered by Serbians and Russians. Then Georgians were murdered by Serbia and Russians too, the mercenaries in the Georgian border. Now in Ukraine is happening the same thing, so we have one same enemy in different years. It doesn't matter how many years after, we just have the same enemy. And we're all here together in this thing. So.
And is your family okay with you fighting in a foreign land for other people?
My family, all of us were military personnel in our previous lives. I mean, in our life in Albania, so all of us has shot guns against Russia or Serbia. So they're really supportive. They're supportive, and they will support me always in this thing. I just know that.
It's not an easy mission. What drives people from far-off lands to join the war effort in this punishing cold? It's certainly not money. The beginners do not even get a salary, just basic facilities and accommodation, plus training to fight all kinds of wars.
First is security. You want to protect your ambush.
Their trainer today is Adam, an American soldier, now one of the thousands of fully trained foreign fighters in Ukraine's defense apparatus. Adam begins with a briefing.
The first minute of the ambush is the most violent. Every person shoots. As they move through, they shoot any bodies they see at least twice.
Among the trainees today are some beginners and Ukrainian citizens who are joining this force. From the elderly to the teenagers, they've all picked up arms. They say it's not a choice, but a necessity, that this war has been thrust upon them.
The Ukrainian people have a right to defend their country and be a sovereign nation, just like the rest of us. So I'm here to help them maintain that.
Do you think these people have that spirit? Do you think they're ready to do what it takes? Because fighting a war is not a weekend affair. It's going to take a lot of commitment.
You don't know until it happens, but the fact that they're out here now shows that they want some kind of training. I hope a lot of these people don't have to fight. There's some young teenagers here. I wish they could just go on and live their lives and stuff, but it might not be that way.
A rare display of emotion for a soldier who's getting his team battle ready. Today, Adam is teaching them how to survive in the battleground, how to find cover and how to use weapons. This is a typical war drill. They're training for an ambush, and this is in terrain very similar to what you see on Ukraine's border with Russia, deep in snow. They have come in a formation and they're trying to figure out how to take on the adversary and how to take back the soldiers who may be injured in an ambush. NATO might not send its soldiers to Ukraine, but citizens in NATO countries and many others are volunteering to fight. In the last 8 years, thousands of them have poured into Ukraine. In the last few weeks, the number of applications has shot up significantly. This support comes as a major morale booster for the people of Ukraine. They're not on their own. They see these foreign fighters as comrades in arms in their battle against Russia. With the WION team in Ukraine, this is Palki Sharma Upadhyay reporting on the biggest flashpoint in the world.
The Winter Olympics has been hit by high-profile doping allegations after a Russian figure skater tested positive for a prohibited substance. The International Olympic Committee has postponed the medal ceremony, citing legal obstacles. Kamila Valieva, the 15-year-old Russian sports star, has tested positive for a banned heart medication before the Beijing Games. She was expected to deliver Russia its third straight Olympic gold medal in women's figure skating. When asked about the doping case, the spokesperson of the International Olympics Committee refused to comment on whether the delayed ceremony will take place.
As you can imagine, I'm not going to comment on all sorts of speculation that I have also seen overnight, and that speculation will continue. As I said, as you said, we had a situation arrive yesterday at short notice, has legal implications, and I hope you would appreciate, I'm not from the podium of a press conference going to comment on a legal case, because it wouldn't be appropriate. On the wider issue, you said a potential doping case, and I think that's complete speculation. But in a general point, what I would remind you is that very much that the IOC delegated both testing, management and sanctioning in doping cases to ITA and CAS to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. So I won't be having anything more to say on that.
Well, just a day earlier, another Belarusian athlete fled to Poland after being banned from the Winter Games. A 17-year-old cross-country skier from Belarus was barred from participating in the Olympics after her skiing licence was cancelled by the Belarus Sports Association. And another former world champion from Belarus is also facing the same fate at this year's Games. The freestyle skiing world champion, Alexandra Ramanouskaya, was arrested and dropped from Belarus national team for her political opinions. The International Olympics Committee was also asked about the politicisation of the Games by the Belarus sports authorities, and this was what the spokesperson said.
At the moment, it's purely an issue between them and FIS. If FIS want to look into it further, then they obviously will do. We've reiterated our call to the NOC and all IS to make sure that Belarusian athletes can compete safely without any discrimination.
Well, coming back to those doping concerns, which have delayed the medal ceremony for the figure skating event at the 2022 Winter Olympics, and the 4 Russian skaters even skipped their planned training session this week. It was later revealed that a 15-year-old Russian skater has tested positive for a drug banned by world anti-doping agencies in 2014.
A Russian figure skater who won gold has tested positive for a banned drug, according to the country's media. 15-year-old Kamila Valieva is a member of the Russian group that won the figure skating team event on Monday ahead of the United States and Japan. She delivered one of the highlights of the Games so far when she landed the first quadruple jumps by a woman in an Olympic competition. However, the ceremony to present her and her teammates with their Olympic gold medals was postponed for unexplained legal reasons. On Wednesday, Russian newspaper RBC reported that Valieva had tested positive for trimetazidine. The drug is typically used to treat chest pains and works by increasing blood flow to the heart and limiting rapid swings in blood pressure. It has been on the World Anti-Doping Agency's list of prohibited substances since 2014. Figure skating is a prestige sport for Russia, in which it has an outstanding record at Olympic and World Championships. Any move to penalise Valieva or strip the team of their medals would likely cause a national outcry. The International Olympic Committee said a need for, quote, legal consultation had forced the postponement of the medal ceremony. Valieva showed up for her scheduled practice at the Beijing Olympics on Thursday.
Well, that's all we have time for on this WION Live broadcast from London. Have a great day and thanks for watching.
There are many other
this is right, Arab.
And Palki Sharma Upadhyay.